It was pretty momentous yesterday. We had all sorts of stuff coming out about different changes, what's going to be happening with some of these proposals that are out there. The one that's gotten the most generated the most buzz is the Tush push, and what the plan is when it comes to the Tush push. The owners have tabled it. All right, we have tabled the discussion. We are going to pick this thing back up at the spring meetings in May. 16 teams are in support of the Packers' proposal to ban the play. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, spoke about his thoughts on the potential banning of the Tush push. He was there at the owners' meetings yesterday. Let's take a listen.
I think there are safety issues that are being considered in that case. We have very little data from it, but it's beyond data. There's also, there's the mechanism of injury that we study, that type of thing that leads us to show the risk involved with a particular play or particular tackle. There's a lot of discussion about going back to the previous rule, back to pre-2004. The reality of it is, I think that's makes a lot of sense in many ways, because I think it expands it beyond just that single play. There are a lot of plays where you see someone pulling or pushing somebody that are not in the tush-push formation that I think do have an increased risk of injury. And so I think the committee will look at that and come back in May with some proposals.
So there we go.
What was the pre-2004 rule? What was it like?
They outlawed it.
They outlawed.
You weren't allowed to push a runner.
There you go.
So that whole dragging people across the line
they
bar?
Need to go back to that.
Hell yeah.
Not just the tush. Like, here's how you get around it just being identified as the tush-push rule. It should be the push-pull rule. Across the board. It's funny. I saw somebody make the comment. I didn't even really think about it and realize, like, damn, that's how USC beat Notre Dame when Q was in school. The famous pull or push by Reggie Bush.
It's called the Bush push.
The Bush push, right?
I had Notre Dame getting points. I was fine either way.
That's just to me. Good. I just don't understand how that became commonplace. And I know, like, I saw 210 and a couple people like that were offensive-minded guys, make comments about, me saying this, that I don't think that you should be able to push or pull a guy. And whether it's the tush push, listen, you want to do the tush push, you got to figure out how your quarterback can push the tush of the lineman in front of them. That's the only push you should get, and you're the ball carrier. But if somebody else is coming to assist, to push the back and pull the back or the ball carrier, and they're pushing the back to other guys to make that work, I just don't. That's not football. That's not football.
So let me just get this straight. You are not a fan of the assistance of tush pushing, is what you're saying?
I don't. That's correct.
Is that on the field, off the field? Like, where exactly does that stop with you?
Damn.
Well, I would say if it's off the field, certainly outside of the locker room. I'm sure tush pushing would make more sense once I leave the locker room. Yeah. Probably that's where it starts for me. And as soon as I go back towards that locker room, it stops again, and then that process repeats itself. That's okay. What I would say. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Here's what it says. I really don't have any sort
outlawed.
Okay. Maybe what you're doing should be. Hell, it could be illegal in some states. I don't have an issue really one way or another. I think what's interesting about it is we're working on the idea that it is a safe play. I watched the play. I'm like, man. And you'd hear like Jason Kelce to be mic'd up, like moaning underneath the pile every time they'd have to do it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, there has to be eventually something that's going to happen that's going to be tragic. I mean, you've got 300-pound plus men lunging towards one another with their head and neck in a position that it doesn't look like it's going to be safe. And who was the Washington Commandos player who was jumping over the pile?
Louvu.
Yeah, Louvu, Frankie Louvu. And like, if that's the way that teams try to stop it, that's not safe either. So, I guess I'd just say this: if it's a competitive and balanced thing, I could see that because it's been really successful. Although I would go as far as saying the team that introduced the idea to ban the play, the Green Bay Packers, what's ironic about it is they were incredibly successful with the quarterback sneak. 80% of the time they converted on quarterback sneaks last year. Problem is, they ran like 16 of them. So like 16% of the time in their 4th and 1 situations, roughly, somewhere in that category. That's all the quarterback sneaks they ran. So, you're banning a play, at least at this current juncture, because of the competitive imbalance. Meaning, like, it's a foregone conclusion they're going to get the first down. And the problem with that is if you look at some other situations and other plays, you'll see the same competitive imbalance. If it's 4th and 1, obviously, the offense is going to have a greater likelihood of getting it. That's why so many teams have dipped into analytics and why they're going for more 4th and 1s, regardless of the field position. So to me, and I said this the whole entire week, I'll keep saying, it has to be a player safety issue. We haven't had that injury yet, but it's a small sample size. The tush push hasn't been around that long. And the concern for me is this is typically how the NFL works. They're reactive, not proactive. Yep. And eventually, there's going to be something that happens that's tragic, and we're going to sit there and all watch it and go, uh-oh, there it is. Do we have to wait to that moment to get rid of the play?
I'll say this. And thinking about the play itself, people say, well, how do you stop it? Oh, well, they should start pushing too. Like, it should be like literally like almost like a scrum, right? The problem to me is that in doing that, the advantage clearly goes all the way in favor of the offense if you're turning this into a scrum situation, because you can play action. There's a whole lot of different variations you can do off of the play. Now, is that fair? Is it not fair? I don't know, but I just wonder, will defensive coordinators say, you know what? We'll take our chances on if they pull the ball out and try to get to the outside or do a pop pass type of play action play. But we are going to fight fire with fire, and we are going to interiorly with our front seven, we're going to push. Like, I would do a tush push personnel grouping where I send in, instead of having linebackers, I'm going to send in 3 more defensive linemen. And just like we used to push through for field goals, that they outlawed, we're going to start pushing in the A gaps and the B gap.
Yeah, but don't you feel like now you've got way too many pushing of tushes in different
That's a whole
gaps.
lot of ass pushing into the gap.
I just feel like
and that, to me,
mind your own gap. You know what I mean?
Listen, the bottom line here is if you do get to the point of where the tendency is we are going to fight fire with fire, to me now that's where you're getting into the idea somebody's going to get hurt really bad.
It's going to look even goofier than it already does.
Because you're going to have fat boy on fat boy.
Yeah,
we'll take 600 pounds plus of 2 people for your gap to your 300 pounds and a running back or a tight end or whatever it is that's going to push into your back while the quarterback tries to run through it. Right? Like, at the end of the day, if that's all you're going to do, and we know that this is what you're going to do. Problem is that once you start putting those type of personnel groupings in to create a scrum, you just audible out. Like, you don't have anybody that can cover our skill guys, so you audible out. And then now I guess you got to call timeout. Now that's like you're in a boxing match. You're trying to gauge the distance between one another, and you start getting boos from the crowd, right? Like, think of that exchange. They come out, boom, tush push formation. Defense comes out, they line up, boom, send in tush push, or have tush push personnel in. They look at it, they call it audible. The defense sees it, they call timeout. Now you got to go do it all over again. The same sequence.
It's just a lot. It's a lot for a short yardage play. It's like, can we at this point I'm over it. Like, all right, let's just get rid of it. Like, let's just get rid of it. The pushing and pulling that we've talked about, to where for some reason it's allowed where an offensive lineman can drag a ball carrier over the line of scrimmage or over the goal line, and that's just accepted. If they want to go back to the whole thing, 'cause I think their idea is, as opposed to attacking just the one play, let's adjust back to
no pushing and pulling.
This applies to everything.
Yeah,
so
no pushing and pulling.
And I think Sean McVay even said it, yesterday or the day before, where he said, look, I told Philly, because he's part of the competition committee, I don't want it to feel like we're attacking them. It's the optics of the play. There's something larger that needs to be done. And if it means taking away all of it, then just take away all of it.